now we kind of got that figured out. So basically, all the fire starters that we've done up to this point was very, very similar to each one of these problems. It was kind of like I gave you like a test problem that was very similar to this. So number one is, and you guys have any time stop me if you have a question. So don't be afraid to ask me for if you can't see something or you can't you need to go over something. So number one, it's 3h cubed plus 7h minus 8 in parentheses, and then minus the 5h cubed plus 6h minus 4. Now remember, this is a minus sign. The biggest mistake I see when people do this problem is they multiply when they're not supposed to. You're going to distribute the negative sign. So that should turn into minus 5h cubed minus 6h plus 4. It's probably the most common mistake. Now, after that, right here, that doesn't change at all because there's nothing in front of that parentheses. So it's 3h cubed plus 7h minus 8. Now I'm just going to combine my like terms. So h cubes go with h cubes. 3h cubed minus 5h cubed is negative 2h cubed. 7h goes with minus 6h, so I get minus 1h. And then minus 8 plus 4 becomes minus 4. And so that's going to be my final answer. And, oh, it should be plus h, I'm silly. Because it's positive 7. And that's going to be C. So, anybody got questions on that one?
No.
No.
I'm going to move on then. So 2 is just distributive property, like pizza delivery guy times 2, like x is pizza delivery guy. So he's going to go over to x squared's house, 3x's house, and 4x's house. So all the red writing is going to come from that. So I got x cubed plus 3x squared plus 4x. And then negative 2, so I'll change colors. The blue writing, negative 2 is going to go to all three. So negative 2 times x squared is minus 2x squared. And negative 2 times 3x is minus 6x. And negative 2 times 4 is minus 8. So I'm going to combine my like terms now. So change color again. X cubed has nothing to combine it with, so it just becomes x cubed plus x squared minus 2x minus 8. That's it. Everybody get that one?
Yeah.
Cool. Like I said, if you need to stop me, feel free. Now, 3 is pretty easy. Remember, the most common mistake I'll see on number 3 is somebody's going to kind of do something like this. Somebody's going to take the 2, and they're going to try and distribute that. Remember, you can't do that with exponents, so that's a big no-no. Don't do that. Remember, you're going to write it twice. So you're going to put x plus 3, and now it's just FOIL. So it's actually an easier version of what we did in number 2. So x goes to x, that's x squared. X goes to 3, so x goes to x. X goes to 3. Then 3 goes to x. Then 3 goes to 3. We end up with 9. So I end up with x squared plus 6x plus 9. So really, this one's just to fill in the blank. But good? Not good? Hopefully.
1 second, I'm trying to catch up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, see, that's perfect. You can tell me to slow down, all that stuff. So let me know whenever you are ready, and I will move on.
Okay.
Good?
Yep.
Right,
Yeah.
clear the page. Let's see. I don't usually use this app for when I'm doing the writing on the stuff. So factoring the polynomial completely. I should be able to pull this up. That's not what I want. Also not what I want. I was trying to find our factoring GPS, but I I don't know where that picture's at off the top of my head. So remember we had that factor in GPS where the first thing we're going to do is look and see if there's anything in common, and they don't have anything in common. And then the next thing we're going to do is count the terms. So we count the terms. Actually, I know exactly where it's at. Here it is. Hint page. That's what I was looking for the whole time. So what I'm going to be using for this problem is right here. I'm using this factor in GPS. So I have something, I'm going to look for something in common. I'm going to say no. Then I'm going to count the terms. So there's 2 terms. So I'm going to hope that there's perfect squares as a subtraction sign. And they are. So 16 squared. Remember, that can be written. I'm going to write it over here. So 16y squared minus 81. Remember, 16y squared is the same thing as 4y squared, or 4y. And 4y. And 81 is a perfect square, 9 and 9. So remember, that rule says if they're both perfect squares, which they are, and there's a minus sign, we get to use this little formula that looks like this. It's a squared minus b squared equals, in parentheses, a plus b, a minus b. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewrite this as 2 sets of parentheses, 4y plus 9, 4y minus 9, and I'm done. And that is, see. So whenever we do our post test, whether it's online or whether it's in person, if we are lucky enough to come back, your post test will be very, very similar to this. I'm not trying to trick you on a post test. There'll be number 4 will probably be a multiple choice question. It will probably have a perfect square minus a perfect square. So I'm not trying to, it'll have different numbers and letters, obviously, but it'll be the same concept. Everybody good on 4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 5. 5, we have x fourth minus 14x squared plus 40. So I'm going to go back to my little factor in GPS, and I know that there's nothing in common, and then I count the terms. So I start with something in common, I count the terms. There's 3 terms. General trinomial, that's our normal. Break down the first, break down the last, check the middle. And remember, even though this is x to the 4th, because it goes x fourth, x squared, and then no x's, that's like that quadratic form thing. You can break this down just like you've done before. So most people will remember doing this part, remember doing this part. Remember, this could be 1 and 40. I don't like the 14. 1 and 40, or 2 and 20, or 4 and 10, 5 and 8. 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work. All right. Now remember, it's positive. So since the last number is positive right here, we know that both of these inside the parentheses have to have a negative sign. This is the only way you can get two negatives will give you the positive when you multiply using FOIL. And it's the only way you can add up to get the 14. So I like 10 and 4 because 10 and 4 will add up to be 14. So I want x squared minus 4, x squared minus 10. Now, so this is actually, like I said, this is actually quadratic form. This is, so number 3 underneath this GPS. Now, the last thing we have to do is, because it's still an x squared at the end, we do have to make sure that this can't be broken down. And actually, this one can, because 4 is a perfect square. So for number 5, your actual best answer is x plus 2, x minus 2, and then x squared minus 10. And we don't have to break down x squared minus 10 because 10 is not a perfect square. But if that was x squared minus 100, then I would have to break it down. Good? Not good? Maybe?
I'm good.
Good. All right, cool. So 6 is perfect cubes. So I'm going to go back to this little hint page. Is that showing up when I switch back and forth? I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it is.
All right, cool. So I'm actually going to use the bottom right of this hint page. So this is the hint page you guys will get when you take your post test anyhow. So I'm actually going to use the bottom right. Remember, I have a perfect cube either adding to a perfect cube or perfect cube minus a perfect cube. So the biggest key is I have to be able to write it with 2 little 3s. So, the problem is 27 is kind of messing things up in this problem. So I'm going to kind of rewrite it, because we should know, or hopefully we fill out the back page of that hint page or the second page of that hint page. We could know that 27 is really 3 cubed. And so I could actually change this whole thing into x cubed plus, instead of 27y cubed, I could write 3y cubed. So now I have an a cubed plus a b cubed. And that little formula over there tells me, let's flip to the other page. I gotta zoom in again. So I know it's kind of hard to read, but it says it's going to be a plus b in parentheses times a squared minus ab plus b squared. So this is going to be a plus b, a squared minus ab plus b squared. So I just got to find what a and b are and then plug them into this mess. So x is your a and 3y is your b. So I'm just going to plug it in. So this is actually just going to become x plus 3y, that's a plus b. I take a and I square it, so I write x squared. Now I have to do a and b together, so I just minus 3xy, because I just multiplied those two together. And then I'm going to square, and the most common mistake is actually this little part right here. It's probably the most common mistake. I square the 3 and the y to get plus 9y squared. And you're actually done. There's nothing more you can do here. Done. Good on that? Hopefully.
Yeah.
I am.
Awesome. You guys okay if I clear it, or you want to wait a second?
Go ahead.
You can.
Cool. Now, so 7, I gave you this hint that it's factorable. That's kind of a big deal. That tells you you can use the GPS versus the P's and Q's like we did on, was that today's fire starter or yesterday's fire starter was P's and Q's? So you could do P's and Q's. You could completely ignore the factoral part. You could say 24 is P and 1's Q and make this synthetic division box. That's totally okay. You're allowed to do that. What I'm saying is that there is an easier way to do this. So remember, when we look at our hint page, 4 terms over here is factor by grouping, right? So factor by grouping says that we're going to look at our first 2 terms and we're going to say those 2 should have something in common. They both have an m squared. So when I take out the m squared, I'm left with m plus 6. That's like division. Like there was 3 m's here. I took 2 of them out, so there's 1 left over. 2 m's were next to the 6. I took them out. Now, I'm going to do the same exact thing, but this time I'm going to look at the 4m and the negative 24. And I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit. I know when I factor by grouping, I have to have matching parentheses. So what I do here is I just kind of guess that, and I say, well, negative 4 would be awesome, because if I had negative 4, it would give me the negative 4m and the negative 24. Now, once our parentheses match, which they do, that's the big key. I take those 2 parentheses, they just turn into 1. And then what's left over is m squared minus 4. And remember, this is equal to 0. Because the only way we could solve it if it's equal to 0. Now, I could go further if I wanted. There's a couple different ways to finish this. If they were telling you to factor it, remember perfect square right here, in perfect square with a minus sign. So actually the most factored form would be this. Right, break down the second set of parentheses into 2 of their own parentheses. And then I set each parentheses equal to 0. So I say m plus 6 equals 0. M plus 2 equals 0. And m minus 2 equals 0. I subtract 6 from both sides, so m equals negative 6. That's my first answer. I subtract 2 from both sides, so m equals negative 2. That's my second answer. and then I add 2 to both sides. I get m equals 2. That's my third answer. And we knew there was going to be at most 3 answers because the degree in the beginning is 3. Any questions on that one?
No.
No.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Can I move on?
Yeah, you're good.
Good. Now, 8 and 9, they're just divide problems. So 8, you can either use synthetic division or you could use polynomial long division. So remember, synthetic division, I think, is much easier. That's the top one. That's where you make the box. That's kind of like an L. It's like an open box. And that's where you're just using numbers. And then long division is kind of like what the long division you did in like 3rd grade. So for one, the reason I'm allowed to use synthetic division is because it's in divisor form. So that's divisor form. It just means you have x plus or minus a letter, or a number, I mean. So if you have one x plus or minus a number, you can use synthetic division. So that's what I'm going to use. Remember, synthetic division, you're going to make the box. You're only going to put numbers inside the box. So I look here. X cubed, that's not a number. I'm just going to use the number in front of it, which is 1. Then I look at the negative 10 x squared, so I just put minus 10. Then it's plus 19, so I put plus 19. Then I do plus 30. Boom. All right. Now, remember, this negative 6, they're hanging out with our x, right? And we don't trust anybody who hangs out with our x. So negative 6 is hanging out in a room with your x. You can't trust them. You're actually going to turn that and make it positive 6. So remember, that's always the opposite. And if you look on your hint page over here, it says that. So make synthetic division box. We did that. The coefficients go inside the box. If it's divisor form, which it is, we put the opposite. Now I'm going to add numbers if they're inside. I'm going to multiply numbers if they're outside. So 1 has nothing to add with because it's inside. So I just drop it down. Or you could put a 0 there. Now this 1 right here is on the outside. So I do 1 times 6. So I do 6 times 1. And it's going to give me the number right here, which is 6. Negative 10 plus 6 is 4. I'm going to do 6 times 4 to get 24. 19 plus 24. It's going to be 43. Okay. Oh, it should be negative 4 here. I'm dumb. Negative 24, which is negative 5. And then 6 times negative 5 is negative 30, which means there's a remainder, which means it works out nicely. That's not guaranteed to happen on every divide problem. Sometimes you could have remainders. Sometimes you won't. You will have remainders. Sometimes you won't. If it tells you, like, given a factor, that's when you know the remainder should not show up. But when I just tell you to divide, it could have a remainder, it could not. Now, if you look on here, after we add our numbers and do all that, we have to put the variable back in because we don't have an expression answer right now. Remember, with synthetic division, it's dividing by 1x, so every degree goes down by 1. So I saw an x cubed to start, so that's the degree. It's 3. So now instead of starting with x cubed, I start with x squared. If this was 5, I put 5x squared. But it's just 1, so I just put x squared. You can put 1x squared if you want. Then I put negative 4x. Then I put minus 5, and that's done. Oop. And you don't have to factor it in anymore, even though you could. This could be factored more, but I didn't tell you to do that. So it just said divide. Everybody good on 8?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, last one to do today is 9. So 9, you must use long division. And the reason I must use long division is because the number in front of x is not 1, it's 4. So that is not in divisor form. So you cannot use synthetic division, which makes our life a little bit harder, but we can still do it. So remember, with long division, you're going to make the box. So if you're following along on your hint page, you're going to make your division box. Now this is like the division box from like 3rd grade. And inside the box, this one has letters. So I put 8x squared plus 34x minus 1. Now, remember, I always said this is like scratch work, right? Oh, I forgot to put this up. So outside the box, I'm going to put 4x minus 1. Now, when we were doing this in class, I always called this scratch work. This is kind of like us thinking in our head. I have 4x, which is right here. I'm going to multiply it by something, and I want to get 8x squared because that's what's going to go on top of the box. Now, if you don't like writing it like that, you also could do 8x squared divided by 4x, but I find that you guys don't like dividing as much as just thinking what times what equals the 8x squared. So hopefully you guys see pretty easily that 4 times 2 is 8, and x times x is x squared, so it should be 2x. Remember, I take that and I put it right here. Now remember, when we did this in class earlier in the year, much earlier in the year, I like to have everything lined up. I like to put the x's over the x's. I don't put it over the x squared because if I do this, when I run out of space on top of my box, I'm probably done with my problem. So it's a good way to kind of have a self-check in case you messed up or not. So now I distribute. 2x goes to 4x, gives me 8x squared. Then 2x goes to minus 1, gives me minus 2x. The most common mistake that I'm going to see in a long division problem is people are going to forget to either distribute correctly, or most likely they're going to forget to change the signs. So I have to make that a minus 8x squared, and I have to make that a plus 2x. All right. Now I'm going to do everything again. So now I'm just going to add. So those cancel. And if those don't cancel, you probably did something wrong. 36x, and then the 1 just drops down. And now it's just rinse and repeat. I'm going to go through the whole thing again. But now I have a new line leader. 36x is in charge. So I have 4x times what is going to give me 36x. Now 4 times 9 is going to give me 36. And I already have 1x, so I don't need any more x's. So I'm going to put 9. And that should make sense because I started with 2x. My next guess should have just a number, and it does. Now it is plus 9. So now I'm going to distribute that. The 9 goes to the 4 and the 1. So it's going to give me 36x. 9 times negative 1 is negative 9. And even though we're not going to multiply again, we still have to remember to change these signs. Like I said, this is the most important step. So right here where I change the signs, it's the most missed step in all of these problems is right here. And if you do it wrong in like the first line, it's going to mess up all your numbers all the way throughout. So it will mess things up pretty significantly. Those cancel right here. Negative 1 plus 9 is 8. 8 is my remainder. And I should have known that because I ran out of space. There's nothing at the end I'm at the end of my box at the top to begin with. And 2, 4x times, there's no number I can multiply 4x by to get 8. Just 8. I can multiply 4 by 2 to get 8, but not 4x by 2. So there's nothing I can do. So your final answer for a long division problem is 2x plus 9. That's your quotient. But remember, you're going to add it to your remainder, which is 8. Goes all over your divisor, 4x minus 1. Any questions on that?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I didn't catch why you said we had to do long division instead of the synthetic division.
Ah, good. So see how here, that's a great question. See how that says x minus 6 there?
Yeah.
That's 1x, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because this has a 4 in front of that x, it is not in the proper form to use synthetic division.
Oh, okay.
Now, like another way you might, like more commonly, like you could, if you really, there's some ways to kind of trick it into making it, but basically because it's not, it needs to be, synthetic division needs to be x plus a number or x minus a number.
Okay.
So if you ever saw an x squared, have to use long division. You saw 3x, have to use long division. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, great question. Anybody else got questions?
Nope.
All right, cool. That's all. I was just gonna do one page today. So if you guys have any specific questions, don't hesitate to ask me at any time. If you just want to do this one-on-one, like where it's not like where I'm not going to present it to the whole class and stuff, we can do that too. So but I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to kind of see how things are working and stuff like that.